In today's video, we'll be going over when Bitcoin is likely to see this next major low. Also, where is Bitcoin likely to see this next major low? And then I should preface this whole video by stating this is going to get a bit complicated, especially for this next couple of weeks of price action with Bitcoin coming off of the highs of $108,000. A trap is emerging, very, very likely emerging. And the real question is, well, what's going to actually confirm it? So I do want to be covering that angle. That'll come a little bit later. But of course, we'll start off here where we left off on yesterday's video as to when to expect this next low for price action. So for that, we had this chart, which has been showing a pretty consistent relationship since middle of November, when Bitcoin essentially, started this upwards consolidation. And you can see, or you probably, hopefully can see, that these green boxes here were measured from the low to the high. And typically, these were the rally periods, but more importantly, they had about 7 to 8 days of rallying. So, about a week essentially of upwards price action. And you can also see that the last 1, 2, 3 of these green zones were about 15% or a little bit above 15%. In fact, the last couple ones almost identical in percent gained, 15.23 versus 15.25. I mean, that's really, really close, especially for a number that trades at $100,000. And of course, the one before that was 15.10. So, all these are very, very close to each other. Those upwards periods were followed by, of course, a downwards period, finding that next higher low. In this case, we do see this first one happening 4 days and 4 hours after the high and coming down about 9%. This second one over here coming down 10%. So again, very similar. A little bit longer here, 4 days and 20 hours, but still I'd say that's, quite similar. And then of course, this current iteration that we're seeing, which could give us some indication as to when we're likely to see this flow, still, as we went over in yesterday's video, is not happening or unlikely to happen today. I mean, I guess it could, but for reference, we are on day number 2. We're on day number 2, hour number 20, or 17 bars. The others, in terms of bars, as far as the lows went, were 25 bars and 29 bars respectively. So, if we were to extrapolate out to the mid 20s, something like that, it doesn't necessarily have to be perfect, obviously, but it would be. I mean, it'd look better, I guess. 25 bars brings you into kind of late Saturday, or late for me in Eastern Europe here, or Eastern Northern Europe. Fucking Finns hate it if you call it Eastern Europe, by the way. It's the Nordics. It's the North, I guess so. But yeah, our time zone would be happening a little bit later on Saturday. So perhaps Bitcoin does spend a little bit of time at this, on these lows here today, probably testing these lows a few more times. But you can see that we haven't seen any closures, especially on a daily time frame, below $97,000 just yet. So Bitcoin very, very close in terms of time to the low. Could price also be close as well? I mean, probably for right now, we have seen about an 11.86% move from the current high to the current low of this current iteration. Again, that would actually be still very comparable to the past couple, but a little bit more, to be fair, a little bit more. And again, with the timing of that, could Bitcoin make a slightly new low between today and tomorrow, like, the next 36 hours, let's say? Very possible, obviously. Also could make a massively new low. I mean, that's also possible too. But again, Bitcoin has a lot of things kind of going for it right here. Bitcoin is resting on that 50% retracement level at 96,850. And we do start to see, if I bring up my indicators right here, we do start to see a small amount, but present amount of regular bullish divergence starting to emerge after yesterday's hidden bullish divergence, which did produce, a nice bounce right here. But obviously that bounce was canceled for lower prices. And I do think that it probably sets up for something relatively similar over here, maybe after retesting slightly lower again in the next day. By the way, if you find this content valuable or entertaining, or even if you fucking hate it, consider subscribing. You can even let me know in the comments how much you hate it if you do subscribe. And then of course you can always unsub later as well. Anyways, okay, yes, moving on from there. This potential for it's a very, very small potential, right? Or very, very small, smallly present. it's not any massive potential bullish divergence building up right here, but it is in the making, very, very likely, but still needs another iteration. But that, more importantly, can start to bleed into the daily, because as of right now, Bitcoin still has not made a daily lower low. It has retested around the last prior major low, which is that 96.8/96.6 number on a closing basis, that is. But it hasn't made a new low just yet. So we don't necessarily have, a downtrend emerging as of this exact moment. There's like some sort of alarm going on offside. Hopefully you can't hear that. But it's fucking annoying. Anyway, it's like, fuck these people having issues. I'm annoyed. Anyways, where was I? Yes. Bitcoin has not made a new low just yet. In fact, it's ever so slightly closing on a higher low as of right now. But of course, it has not confirmed a local low just yet. But more importantly, there would be potential for hidden bullish divergence. The daily RSI is below, it's even below where Bitcoin was on November 26th, where, that low was coming in at about $92,000. So, at some point it will fire off. And I suspect that if Bitcoin essentially kind of, spins its wheels here over the next day, you're likely to see a bounce attempt from this region. But that brings me into kind of the end of this video, or the last part of this video, where there is a potential for a trap on the other side and a much more prolonged consolidation long term. That would massively change around my own theory on this cycle, meaning that I would actually look at that as a good thing if you're if you want the cycle to be longer, I suppose. But obviously that would imply that things are going to slow down, a lot between now and probably February, maybe even March. Things will get quite slow. So if you see that, then, I could certainly change my mind on that. But until then, we still do have an uptrend, as close as it is. And also we do see, whoops, I forgot to bring it up over here, but let me just pop it in really, really quickly. We also did see a meta signal setup fire off very, very recently. In fact, where is it? I think I dropped it somewhere. Where the fuck did I drop this thing? Let's see if this one can save it. There we go. Coming in from their Twitter. So they're posting this one publicly. This one, a very low term time frame, 45-minute signal, but does suggest some upwards targets, 98.5, 99, and to 100.5. Again, target 1, target 2, target 3, all in decreasing probabilities as to whether they're there to get hit. Target 1 has actually been very, very good. It's been good since this thing was made. But even in the last couple months, having about a very high 60% strike rate, I think even in some cases around 70% strike rate, just for reaching that first target. So, Bitcoin, again, if it can just spin its wheels here for like another day and a half, that would make me feel very, very confident that Bitcoin is going to get a bounce off of this region right here. Maybe that comes with a slight wick a little bit lower than the current low, maybe closer to, 94.5, something like that. That would be completely fine. Just don't want to see closures below the current low. That would be very problematic. That'd be heteronormative as fuck and very problematic is what I saw on TikTok the other day. Not that I actually watch TikTok, but I like watching YouTube channels about TikTok because those are just, they're the funniest. So I guess I am a TikTok watcher. Oh God, what have I done? Anyways, moving on from there, I did want to get very quickly into the daily HPDR. We can see the daily HPDR for CME is having the median right now at about a little bit below $103,000 price per Bitcoin. So now we'll get into the very nuanced portion of this video. Not that the prior portion wasn't enough already, but it does seem like most people actually get this, which is really, really cool to see, at least judging by the comments. So again, just kind of reiterate the initial thoughts. Low in terms of timing, very close, probably sometime Saturday, give or take a little bit from that time. That could come with a slight wick a little bit lower. Just don't want to see major closures below where Bitcoin currently is at right now. And then, of course, Bitcoin very likely to put in a bounce, regardless of whether you're super bullish or super bearish. What comes next, however, is the trappy region. So because Bitcoin has come back down to that last prior low from 10th of December, let's say, that to me is an indication that it's time to be very, defensive towards a potential lower high making, because we don't necessarily have like a higher low within this range just yet. If we look at, potential targets for bounce or just trappy regions, the most obvious one or the most likely one is going to be between about the 50% retracement and the 618 fib right here. So now would give Bitcoin a price on CME. Again, there is this premium over spot price action, but that would give us a range between about 102,200 to 103,750. So what am I saying? I'm saying Bitcoin very likely to bounce somewhere around this region. I imagine that starts to happen like over this next week. Again, going with this over here. Let me just bring it back up. This relationship right here, that the up phases typically take about a week or a little bit over a week. And then if we see rejections around this region, I'm going to tell you in advance what I'm going to say. A lower high with same lows is not a confidence-inducing thing for continuation of trend. I would have to be looking at that as a trap if that were to happen. If Bitcoin obviously just green dildos its way past, especially the 618 at 103.5, especially by the monthly closure, bullish as fuck, obviously. But until that happens, there is a potential for a major trap right here. And that trap could easily bring us back down to, mid to upper 80s, which is a decent percentage move. So, it could look something like this over the next, few weeks, where it gets rejected there and then comes down somewhere around, your upper mid 80s, somewhere around there. But of course, one thing before the next. First, let's get the fucking bounce, perhaps. But I should also be I should be very vocal about this as well. There's a few things that are happening over here, from a momentum perspective that are concerning for the short term. We see the weekly time frame is going to have momentum cross into the downside for the first time in a very long time, by the way, especially from this region. Last time was actually March of this year. And that will officially come down, assuming today closed below about $107,000 on CME. Very, very likely. Now, this can come down, by the way, and be corrective for a while and then base off of the critical zone and then go again. Probably what happens, honestly. But we can also look at the daily as well. The daily was having this nice trendline regression governing the lows since September. It is going to break that today. So to me, that's an early indication that things are changing again. And in this case, if the prior trend was up, then that would be, a downtrend. So the daily can enter into a downtrend here. The weekly would very likely just find another higher low. I don't think that the market is over or anything like that, just to be 100% clear. Although there is some very concerning December data as well. Maybe I'll share that at the end of this video too. But again, if we do see a rejection somewhere around that region, anywhere below 103 especially, then I really would be anticipating, a major move down to kind of flush everyone out somewhere around 86 to 88,000 bucks price per Bitcoin. I guess that would be, to open up January, something like that. Until then, Bitcoin sideways here would be good. Sideways for a long time would be good. If this were to happen, if this scenario again were to happen, I would revise my sort of timing of this cycle to say, hey, we're probably not going to see a top in March. We're probably going to see a top actually, later on in the year, maybe closer to fourth quarter, which I think a lot of people are looking for as well. But it really hinges upon Bitcoin's ability to hold this region. If it does not, I do expect this consolidation to go on for a while. This could take us most of January, most likely, maybe even February, but very likely January at least. All right, cool. We've got that. I will end on this. I don't want to scare anyone here, but I do want to give out complete information. And there is something very interesting about December for Bitcoin. Almost all of the prior cycle highs have happened during December. These red lines are December highs for Bitcoin, cycle highs for Bitcoin, I should add. We have this first one here in 2013. This was literally on the top. Technically the top was the month before, but, open around the top, and that was, it reversed then. Similar over here, December 2017. By the way, topping even on the same day as our current December high, which is the 17th. Again, I'm not saying that has to mean anything, but it is very interesting. And then, of course, Bitcoin reversed for the whole cycle from that moment. It was down only. And then even this one over here, although it technically wasn't the actual top in December of 2021, it was I mean, it was essentially the confirmation of the top with follow through to the downside. After November topped, of course, at $69,000. So, I mean, again, I don't think that Bitcoin's topping here for like the cycle or nothing like that. But if we start to get, this trappy behavior over here, and then maybe even Bitcoin fails below this range, let's say like $85,000, then perhaps, yes. I mean, I guess, again, I'm not saying that this is going to happen. I'm not even saying that this is like a high probability. It's very, very low probability, at least in my mind as of right now. But of course, we want to be preparing for things, well in advance before they actually happen, so that we know what fucking actions to take if that were to happen. At least that's how I like to position these videos, because I look at these as like my own investment diary or my own investor diary. I generally use these analyses to kind of govern my own, long-term investments. Not my short-term trading, obviously. We don't really speak too much about that, but long-term investments certainly. Anyways, okay. That's where I'll leave things on today. Actually, one last thing here. This is also rather interesting to me. So, and perhaps to you as well. If you are bullish, we actually should not be expecting really any lower today, especially on a closing basis. For the weekly time frame on Bitcoin, using that red moving average, just a 5 exponential moving average, we can see if we go throughout the dawn of time for Bitcoin, during all upside markets, Bitcoin likes to ride that. And when it loses it, it enters into, much more prolonged sideways consolidation. Right now, that is at 96,750. And, if Bitcoin were to close below that today on CME, it's another good early indication that this next bounce to the upside will be a trap. It very likely will come lower. So again, I just want to outline these things, just so that, we have them well in advance. But yeah, going throughout the dawn or the annals of history for Bitcoin, has been very, very good at riding that during its mega, macro breakout. So if it did lose that today, I'd look at that as significant. All right, cool. That's where I'll end things for today. Again, we'll have a sale coming in on Monday of this next week. I just want to give you a bit of an advance notice, as I have been for the past few days here. Don't buy anything right now. It's, wait a few days, save yourself a few bucks. And so we'll pick up where we left off tomorrow. In fact, actually we won't, because Fibbo Swanee is going to be coming on for a video tomorrow. So we'll come back on Sunday. And with all of that said, I want to wish you the best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully tomorrow.